Hello, hello, hello. This is Warren Redlick. Thank you so much for watching. We are here on the Daily Live. This will be replayed on YouTube later. Lots of great stuff to talk about today. Let's start with the fun stuff. Elon was photographed at Sombrero Day down in Brownsville, Texas, eating Spiro Papas, spiral potatoes. And I made my own meme out of it. Which word is misspelled? It's Spiro Papas, spiral potatoes, not Sprio Papas. I don't think that's necessarily the funniest meme someone could make, but I had fun making it, so I hope you guys like it. I'll probably come up with some other memes to make fun of this later. There's a whole lot you can do with this, and people are making some pretty bad ones so far, so we'll see how it goes. But Elon was out and about with X, his baby boy from Grimes, and having a good time, and it was nice to see that. Okay, so the other personal side of things is, I think people know I got divorced. The divorce was final in late January. My IRA account just cleared. We split the IRA account, and I got free to do whatever I wanted with my IRA. And it just so happened that Tesla was cheap. I sold a bunch of other stuff, Amazon, Coca-Cola, McDonald's, a few other things, and I bought Tesla stock at $741 a share. I am pretty happy about that. Holiday shopping, discount shopping, whatever you want to call it. I'm not 100%, like people are saying they're 100% of their net worth is in Tesla. I can't say 100% of my net worth is in Tesla because I own part of a house and I have other, cash and a car. My car is worth like $40,000 or $50,000, right? A Model 3 with FSD beta. So I have other assets that add up to something. But I'm very, very heavily invested in Tesla, and now I'm even more heavily invested in Tesla. I hope you can all appreciate that. I imagine a lot of you are on board. I might be wrong. I'd like to be less wrong. I think I'm going to be more right. But you can check out the t-shirts, including the Tesla and Air t-shirt, and Tesla is the next Tesla t-shirt at elonbits.com. I'm curious if you bought Tesla stock on this low point. Just, put a comment here on Locals or something on YouTube. Mitch says 40% of his 401k is in Tesla. He bought more on Thursday. Cool. All right. So why am I excited about Tesla these days? You guys all know I'm excited about Tesla. I just put out a video yesterday, which I think is a really big deal. If you really want to understand what's going on with FSD and version 11, which Elon tweeted about 5 days ago, I really dove deep following up on Elon's interview with Lex Fridman. There was a lot of material in that interview that I was able to use and use some other material. I brought in video from The Matrix. I brought in clip from my own FSD beta experience to just explain what I think is going on. There's a lot here. I'm gonna cover a little bit more about FSD here in the next few images. I rely on Elon's tweets and sometimes my own tweets or other things I see on Twitter to sort of give me a guide for how I'm gonna go forward with the live stream, and then we see what kind of questions we get along the way. Omar Kazi, Homar's Catalog, tweeted about this effort to get LiDAR involved. And Elon responds, LiDAR is a seductive local maximum. SpaceX uses it, but the road system was designed to work with biological neural nets and eyes. This is something he said in the Lex Fridman interview as well. So a general solution to self-driving necessarily will require silicon neural nets and cameras, real-world AI. That's covered in the video that I published yesterday, but the video is about a lot more than that. I think people are obsessed with LiDAR. They're obsessed with radar. They think infrared. There's all these things that they think that people think you need to make self-driving work. And Elon makes a pretty compelling case, and I think I lay it out in my video yesterday, why not just that cameras are important, but more. Baby Ori Times says, or Baby Or Y Times says, I bought 60 shares when it was 1,000 to 1,100, so wish I had more money to buy at this insane low. I actually bought some at around 1,000. I have a second IRA, and I realized I was free to do something with that, and I bought like 67 shares around 1,000 or 1,100 a few weeks ago or a few months ago, whatever. So, if you think it's going to 10,000, how much does it matter whether you bought it at 700 or 1,000? It doesn't matter that much. Just, get in before it shoots up. I don't play timing games. It just so happened the money freed up when it was on a dip. It wasn't like I was trying to time the market. The account split, but it took another day, and probably if it had happened a day earlier, I might have gotten at 700, but I don't care. I got more Tesla stock. I'm very deeply into Tesla stock, and I'm pretty happy about that. Okay, so This is a lot of what's covered in the video. This is a tweet exchange. I didn't cover this tweet in the video, but this series of tweets from K10, Kristen, and Elon sort of covers this. Kristen, who I was in the cross country drive with, who drove across the country with myself and Omar and my brother. She says FSD beta is a game changer, industry changer. The others don't want to admit their designs and plans are flawed. They want to slow down Tesla with a concerted effort. And Elon says here, a general solution to self-driving, essentially real-world AI, requires writing extremely different software in the arenas of training, inference control, analytical tools, data management, hardware optimization, and simulation. One of the hardest technology problems that exists. He says, while it is tempting to focus on one of those arenas as the hard one, in fact, they are all difficult and important. Type C and custom compiler too. An inference computer optimized for energy efficiency, reliability, and long life is also critical. You can't just jam GPUs in the trunk. Somebody told me I should, maybe it's another tweet. Oh, there's another tweet. I just want to show you this really quick. Elon at some point says, nothing beats tight C, and somebody said I should make a t-shirt that says nothing beats a tight C, which I think is a sexual reference. I haven't made the t-shirt yet. Nothing beats a tight C. Okay, so in the video that I published yesterday, Elon does talk about what might be the real hard part. It's kind of funny that he says here on the 22nd that we shouldn't, it's tempting to focus on one arena as the hard one. There is a hard part, and we're seeing it, and Elon talks about it in the video. The hard part is, all of this is involved in the hard part. The hard part is light comes in the cameras, and the car has to try to understand the world. Elon describes it as creating a vector space. You can think about it as creating a 3D model or 4D model of the world. If the chips and software can create an accurate and timely model of the world that the car is going to drive through, it is much easier for the car to drive through that model, that world, than if it creates an inaccurate and late model, right? So they're working on improving latency, so the length of time between the light entering the camera and the control decision, the steering, braking, acceleration decision. If you shorten that time, then the control decision is closer to the information that came in. If you wait too long, the information is stale. And if you're not sure how long you waited, that creates its own set of problems. That's jitter. If your model is inaccurate, you don't see the pedestrian, or you don't accurately predict where the pedestrian is going to move, then it's harder to program the vehicle to move well through the space. So all of these things, training, inference, data management, analytical tools, optimization, simulation, tight C code, and custom compiler, all of these things go toward making the model of the world more accurate and more timely. And if you achieve all that, then writing the code, or whether it's machine learning or it's human written code, telling the car how to navigate the space that it's operating in is so much easier than if you have a messy model that's inaccurate and not timely. So I think that was probably the really important lesson out of the video I published yesterday. The video is like an hour long. I do have chapters in the video, so you can skip ahead to different parts. But I think that interview is compelling. Just watch the Lex Friedman interview itself and watch Elon talking about autopilot. I think I made it better because, number one, Elon says, so whatever. He pauses a lot and he breaks up his thoughts, and I'm able to edit it and remove a lot of that. He also stutters a little bit, and I'm able to make it a much smoother flow of him speaking, combined with explanations of things he doesn't explain because he's speaking into Lex Friedman, and they both operate at a higher level than us morons, and I got to break it down so we understand it. You know, I break it down to how I understand it, and hopefully it makes sense to you. We're not on their level. We're not on the Elon Musk, Lex Friedman level. So, but this is also key. There's so many things going on in Tesla's autopilot and AI business operations, what they're trying to do. The training computers, that's the NVIDIA supercomputers and Dojo. Inference is the chips in the car. Control, the decisions about how to turn and how to brake and how to accelerate and how to make that all work. Analytical tools, data management, hardware optimization and simulation. There's so many different things going on that they're trying to make better, and there's this huge team working there. Even the C compiler, you know, like Lex Friedman was stunned that they're doing their own C compiler. And I didn't explain this well in the video, but you write high-level code that's sort of human readable, and the compiler converts that into faster code that runs at machine language the machine understands. I'm probably still getting it wrong. I understood compilers when I was younger, and I probably don't understand it as well now. Mark P says almost 100% of money in Tesla, sold 3.3% this week to live on. Yeah, I have not sold a share yet. I have yet to sell a single share of Tesla stock. I've been accumulating it since 2016, never sold a share. I make money from YouTube. I have other sources of money that I have that I rely on, and I have not sold a share. I have not borrowed against my Tesla stock. I have thought about borrowing against my Tesla stock to buy more Tesla stock. It's called margin. I don't really like it. It's too complicated. So, all right, I mentioned the C compiler. So there was this conversation. Elon is engaged in this conversation with Jack from Twitter, Jack Dorsey from Twitter. Jack Dorsey, right? Elon talks about compilers can be way better too, not enough effort spent there. Jack says Rust has fixed this dramatically. And Elon dives in here and says Rust is great, but for maximum performance, nothing beats tight C with a customized compiler on specialized hardware. Important for maximum frame rate on vehicle inference computer. Omar asks, wouldn't you say there's overhead to the developer using a language like C where you can easily shoot yourself in the foot? And Elon says, yes, definitely don't use C unless optimizing for hardware performance. The hardware performance is critical. If you can get a higher frame rate, maximize for max performance, max frame rate, if the car is processing 10 images a second, then every decision is made within a tenth of a second. If the car is processing 30 images per second, then your decisions are made. The more frame rate you get, the closer your control decision is to the last information you had coming in from the cameras. And the more information you have coming in from the cameras, because if you have 30 frames per second, you have three times as much information as if you have 10 frames per second. I think they're shooting for 60 frames per second or more. I'm not sure where they are on that, but that is an important part of getting more information in, getting more current information allows you to make better driving decisions. And a lot of this is happening. Mitch says C can almost be directly translated to assembly native code with a good C compiler. Yeah, and Elon talked at some length about the C compiler in the interview with Lex Friedman. That they just came, this was back in November, December, that they had just updated their C compiler. They have their own C compiler to really, really optimize hardware performance because it's really, really important. If you're just doing spreadsheets, if you're just doing, video editing or whatever, you want faster performance, but it's not mission critical like it is with a car that's driving through space and potentially hitting pedestrians. It's just the way it is. Okay, so one more FSD update. Elon said in February 25th that they've had about 60 or so cars testing internally in Canada, hoping to go wider this weekend. I thought I saw someone say that they got FSD beta on a car in Canada. I believe it is happening this weekend. I'm not certain of it, but I think it's happening. That FSD beta is actually going live in Canada this weekend. It's not a big deal to me. I don't think it's a big deal to Tesla, but it doesn't hurt. It will, adding more will help grow. Experiencing different environments, different road signs will help to some extent. I think it's more exciting for Tesla Canada drivers who are going to get the opportunity to drive FSD beta. Canada is probably smaller population than California. There's probably more Teslas in California than there are in Canada, probably double. So I don't think it's going to add that much data to the system, but more data is better. Mark says, all I ever programmed in was BASIC. First computer had no programs, had to write my own. This was in 1981. Yeah, I was programming in BASIC in the late 70s, mid to late 70s on the Commodore 4K PET and other Commodores and things like that. Okay, so the SEC, this is it. We got a few things about the Securities and Exchange Commission and Elon. Tesla Roddy writes an article that Tesla's lawyer alleges SEC leaked information from the federal investigation. Elon says this is 5 days ago now. This is just peeling back the first layer of the corruption onion. Stay tuned. Elon is definitely ready to spoiling for a fight with the SEC. They've been attacking him for a long time. Musk told CNBC the Justice Department is investigating short sellers, and Elon says this is something the SEC should have done, but curiously did not. So the Justice Department appears to be investigating short sellers, not the SEC. Then somebody says the SEC, Ziki Shang, whatever, says that the SEC is more likely colluding with the Wall Street hedge funds, just a matter of whether it can be proven. And Elon says, exactly, there's more coming. Dr. Jack, who I think I follow on Twitter, I know follows me on Twitter, says, what if Elon Musk, Tesla, I think we follow each other. Says Tesla, what if Elon has been and Tesla have been baiting the SEC for years, building their case on the level of corruption, and now they have enough evidence to go public with it? Grab your popcorn, folks. And Elon says, building a case is exactly what I've been doing. James Katz says, starting a fight with the SEC is not a great look. Elon says, I didn't start the fight, but I will finish it. If I was the SEC, I'd be quaking in my boots. Because Elon sounds very, very serious about this. And just one other thing about, I think this is about the Justice Department. Oh no, the SEC just proposed a new rule requiring short position disclosure. The rule will require institutional asset managers to disclose gross short positions to the SEC. And Elon says would be a good move, needs to include put options and synthetic shorts. Put options are a way you can bet against a company without the full risk of doing a short. I don't even know what a synthetic short is. So we're seeing the battle between Elon Musk and the SEC heating up a bit. And, really you kind of wonder, like, what is going on at the SEC? Why are they attacking Tesla? Why are they attacking Elon Musk? And Elon, to his credit, as far as I'm concerned, Elon is fighting back. He's not taking it lying down. Okay, turn into SpaceX stuff. There's concerns with what's going on in Eastern Europe about what might happen with the International Space Station if Russia stops participating in, or the West doesn't want to participate with Russia, because Russia has provided a lot of launch services to the International Space Station. So Space Pete proposes how SpaceX could use 3 different Dragons to help stabilize and maneuver the International Space Station in the absence of the Russian segment attached. And Elon described that as a good thread. So check out Space Pete on Twitter if you want to see what he's talking about. It's the use of additional Dragons. You can see in the picture, there's 2 Dragons on this side and 1 Dragon on the other side. I think two Crew Dragons on one side and a Cargo Dragon on the other side. Because they have thrusters, they can help stabilize the space station and or move the space station as needed if they do it right. Mitch says Elon has called the SEC short sellers enrichment. He likely has evidence we'll see eventually. Yeah, you got to wonder what Elon has. I mean, that's going to be exciting to see. There's this reference here: if you block cooperation with us, who will save the ISS from an uncontrolled deorbit and fall into the United States and Europe? And Elon answered SpaceX. And Elon says yes here. SpaceX is ready to help make sure that the space station survives, does well, everything. They are prepared to do what needs to be done to make sure that the space station is taken care of, and they are capable of doing so. And this is because Elon Musk exists and created SpaceX, and lots of engineers at SpaceX work really hard. The SpaceX team worked really hard to get there. And I'm covering Paul brings up Starlink. I'm covering Starlink next. So Elon steps up. This is important for the United States. It's important for, quote, free world. I'm not sure there is a free world, but that SpaceX is ready to help the space station as needed. Then I don't know who Mikhailo Fedorov is. I didn't bother looking that up. He mentions what's going on in Eastern Europe, and he asks SpaceX to provide Starlink stations to the troubled country that's in the middle of a conflict with Russia. I'm carefully not using that word because I don't want to get in trouble with YouTube for saying something that's going to end up creating some kind of censorship issue when I republish this video on YouTube. So Elon says Starlink is now active in that country and more terminals are en route. So SpaceX and Starlink are working to make sure that internet access is available to people who need it in troubled countries as well as in the United States and other places. I think they're in many countries now. Really quick, there was a successful Starlink mission. Falcon 9 launched 50 Starlink satellites to orbit. Elon tweeted an image of the successful Starlink deploy. Just quick note that normally SpaceX has launched 60 Starlink satellites at a time. It seems like more recently they're launching 50-ish satellites at the time. It may be because they've added laser links to the satellites or something else is going on. The satellites are bigger, or it may be that the orbits they're launching them to do not allow them to launch 60. I'm not sure why that's happening, that they're launching 50 instead of 60. It's just the way it is. And then also, SpaceX, through Starlink, is now providing internet to Tonga, which I believe is a Pacific island. And Elon notes that Starlink is a little patchy to Tonga right now, but improved dramatically as laser inter-satellite links activate. So once because Tonga's in the middle of the Pacific Ocean, it's not like it can go up to a Starlink satellite and immediately down to a ground station, because there's no ground stations near Tonga, or there aren't very many. So they're hoping once they are able to communicate from satellite to satellite, the satellite over Tonga gets the signal or sends the signal, whatever, but it's communicating with Tonga's ground state, communicating with the antennas that users have, bounces up to the satellite, bounces to another satellite, and then goes down to a ground station over Earth, over land. That's going to get better over time. So pretty cool stuff. Let's see. Only 20 minutes in. I'm running out of material. This is terrible. So I ask my local supporters and my Patreon supporters and my YouTube channel members to give me questions. Let me just see what's here first. Mitch says, Stephen Mark Ryan put out a video on that country and how previous president warned NATO about using Russia for energy needs. Environmentalists responsible for the situation in part. Germany shut down all nuclear plants and banned coal. There's a lot of different things going on there. I try not to get into that kind of content on a video that's going to be appearing on YouTube, because maybe Stephen Mark Ryan isn't getting censored. I find I'm getting censored a lot, demonetized a lot if I talk about topics like that. So I'm trying to be careful. We're on the Locals platform right now, but this video is going to be shared on the YouTube platform. And I have a video that I just published on the Daily Lie on this Locals platform, this free speech platform, that I do talk in depth about that topic, but I just don't feel comfortable talking about it on a video that's going to be appearing on YouTube. Getting back to this, so John asks, maybe he asked for some thoughts on what an Optimus bot beta tester program looks like. Interesting. My vision is sending a bot along with a VR-style headset for an operator to selected individuals for beta testing. The operators will then navigate the bot remotely through real-world situations like walking around Walmart, intervene as needed, all the while uploading data for machine learning. I would just say, I just watched a video. I don't even know if I watched the whole video. It was a video from Limiting Factor talking about the Q4 investor call. I think it's his most recent video, or maybe only Patreon supporters of his can see it now. But he talked about the fact that you need to manufacture bots before they're useful. Right? FSD wasn't useful yet when they started putting the hardware and software in the cars. It wasn't that good yet. It had to learn from real-world experience. So Tesla has to make bots in order so that when they put the FSD chip and cameras and the software in them, they have to learn from something. And the way they learn from something is by having real-world bots navigating the real world. I don't know whether it would be a beta tester program or would just be internal to Tesla. It's kind of an interesting question, whether they will at some point sell bots before they're really that useful, but with limited, I think they have to develop some limited ability to perform certain tasks. Like an example is walking around a property that needs to be guarded or surveilled. And their cameras, and they're looking around, and they're surveying the environment, and they're seeing whatever they're seeing and relaying that back to the home office. And if they see something dangerous, they say, hey, I think I see something dangerous. I think I see an intruder, whatever it is. And that's one way that they can learn. That's one fairly simple task, because it doesn't involve manipulating objects, right? The bigger challenge, there's multiple challenges. One is navigating the environment, which I think will probably be relatively straightforward on simple environments. Climbing mountains, it might be more complicated. Then you have the other challenge of manipulating objects. Pick that thing up and put it over there. Now you have to learn how to manipulate objects. So that's going to be a second challenge. So I don't know whether it needs a beta tester program or just needs Tesla internal. But once you make it somewhat useful, then you sell it to people, and people can become beta testers, and it can train on other things. I think there's some potential for that. I don't know how much of that needs to be in private hands versus in Tesla hands. Then John says, by the way, I've always been a don't make your problem my problem kind of guy. Says he was in Iraq in 2010 as an independent contractor. No true military experience. Don't trust upper levels of our government. Same here. I don't trust upper levels of any government. I don't even trust lower levels of most governments. Find myself unable to even vote. Embarrassed at the shell of a man we have for president. Don't listen to mainstream media. Try best to filter information from trusted sources on the internet. What I do is I try to follow different ideologies. So I'll follow Glenn Greenwald, even though I don't agree with him on Israel, and I'll follow, and you can't help but get the mainstream media perspective no matter how you try to avoid it, because so many people will retweet things that the mainstream media says. But you have to follow some dissidents. You follow some people who have different opinions, and then you have to sort of triangulate to the truth, right? The mainstream media is saying this, and this dissident saying that, and this dissident saying that, and this other person saying that, and how do I find the truth? And there's a certain comedian with a big podcast audience, an MMA, slash comedian guy who has a big audience. I find, he brings in a lot of people from a lot of different perspectives, and that's a really good way of figuring out what's going on, is getting different perspectives. If you decide that we're only going to take the government's perspective and we're not going to listen to anybody else, well, there's a decent chance the government's lying to you. So he makes some positive comments about the leader of that country. So he's describing what he's seeing from that leader as patriots. Look, I want to be clear. I'm not taking a side. I generally think that all governments are wrong, and we want all governments to be less wrong. And there's problems with the government of the country that's in question. There's problems with the Russian government. There's problems with the U.S. government. There's problems with the Chinese government. My take, generally speaking, is that the elites in all these countries play power games at our expense. Regular people suffer when the elites play power games. So, thank you, Melody. And this is and people get mad at me because I'm not blindly supporting this side, or I'm not blindly, or they think I'm supporting the other side because I'm not blindly supporting this side. I'm not blind. Look, there's very clear that the leader of my country, his son had a job he shouldn't have had in the country in question. And that's very clear evidence to me of corruption of some sort. And I don't trust the previous president. I don't trust the current president. I think they all lie to us. And my big focus is I want my government to stop lying to me. I want my government to stop lying to others. And I want my government to stop killing people. I want my government to stop messing around in other countries. And I can't fix what's going on between these two countries over there. I don't have any moral right to say something about what's happening between these two countries. I have the moral right and moral authority to say what my government should do and what my government shouldn't do. And that's what I tend to talk about. And I've gotten a lot of people mad at me on Twitter because I'm not blindly supporting the poor little country that blah, 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 blah. And I'm pointing out some details. So there's propaganda coming from our government saying this country's a democracy and they're being attacked. I'm like, are they really a democracy? What happened in 2014? Was there a coup? Oh, it wasn't a coup. It was an uprising. It was a revolution. A coup and a revolution are the same thing. When you like what happened, you call it a revolution. When you don't like the people who took over, you call it a coup. It was a coup. In 2014, it was probably backed by the United States government, and it probably installed a U.S.-friendly government that wasn't very kind towards Russia. And there's issues in a part of that country where they're mostly ethnically Russian, and they speak Russian, and they may feel more allied to the Russian government than their government. Oh, what did the U.S. do to the Native Americans? Oh my God, we could go on. The United States government, I did this tweet where I talked about all the things that the United States government has lied to us about, and particularly in terms of war, the Vietnam War, the Afghanistan War, the Iraq War. And why would I, given all the lies they told us about all those other wars, why would we trust what they're telling us about this one? And there's so many people like, but there's a humanitarian problem there, and there's nice people there who are being attacked. Yeah, okay. But our country attacks people. My focus is what I can do about my country. I feel bad that there's a conflict in this place over there. There's conflicts all over the world. The United States is bombing 7 countries. We have troops in over 170 countries. I want to bring them all home. I want to stop bombing. I want my government to stop killing people. I don't want my government to get involved in more conflicts. I want my government involved in less. I don't even want troops in my own country. I want a militia to defend the borders, and there's no threat. There's no threat to invade the United States. We have the largest military in the world when we have the geographically safest country in the world. It's absolutely ridiculous. But, people generally don't like what I say about this. So I don't, and I don't talk about it that much on YouTube I talk about it a lot on Twitter. So, and Mark's point, what did the U.S. do to the Native Americans? We were terrible. We've done a lot of bad things. Okay, anyway, let me move on to Heidi, Space Girl Heidi, who lives a bit north of me. She enjoyed my video yesterday. We discussed it on Clubhouse as well. She asked, "Do you ever think we'll see a battery that never runs out?" No, that would be a physical impossibility. Um, we will probably see batteries that are more capable. Here's the challenge with building a vehicle with a battery that has more range. The problem with that is the more range you give it, the more battery cells you have to use, and the more the vehicle weighs. And at some point, it becomes counterproductive. And you could ask yourself the question, well, why don't we build cars with gas tanks that have 5,000 miles of range? The answer is because the mass of the fuel would be a problem, and the battery mass would be a problem as well. I think over time, we will see batteries that are less expensive for the amount of range that they provide, and I think we will see batteries that have more range. I think, right now, Tesla's standard is 300 plus miles of range with, some limited exceptions to less. I think they want to get to 400 miles of range is pretty common. And maybe they'll get to 500 miles of range is pretty common. The thing is that once you have an adequate supercharger network, you don't really need a lot more than 300 miles of range, because as long as you can charge a reasonable cost at a reasonable time in a reasonable amount of time, you probably need to take a break every 2 or 3 hours anyway. I mean, there's a few people who will drive 15 hours straight, but that's probably not good for you. It's probably good to stop every 3 hours, which at 70 miles an hour is 210 miles. So you stop every 3 or 4 hours, 280 miles, right? You stop every 3 or 4 hours and you charge the battery for 20, 30 minutes and you go for a walk, get a cup of coffee and go to the bathroom, right? Or get a snack. You really don't lose that much if you do it that way. And there's enough superchargers to make that really worthwhile. Did Elon really buy Mercedes-Benz? I have not seen any indication of Elon buying Mercedes-Benz. Mitch says 250 is plenty, superchargers 150 miles apart. I will say, so my vehicle, my Model 3 is now down to around 293 miles of range. I'd really like to have like 320, 350. I drive to visit my mom in Sebring, Florida, and they are supposedly adding a supercharger in Sebring that's going to make my life a lot better. Because right now what happens is I have to drive to a supercharger on the way to Sebring in West Palm Beach, charge the car, drive to Sebring, come back. Sometimes I don't have enough juice to come back to West Palm Beach, and I have to go to Fort Pierce or Port St. Lucie on the way back, which is a little closer, but that takes me way out of my way. The concept of a battery that never runs out is a physical impossibility. The prospect of having batteries with longer range is possible, but there's a certain point where is it more important to have batteries with longer range, or is it more important to have split those batteries up a little bit and make more vehicles? We're at the stage right now where we need more vehicles, so it doesn't make sense to use more batteries on a small number of vehicles. It makes sense to use less batteries on a larger number of vehicles. When we get to the point where we're no longer battery limited, which is probably a few years away, we'll probably see some vehicles with longer range. And you can definitely see use applications like, let's say I have a vehicle and I want to tow. Towing a trailer tends to really cut into your range by like 50%. So if you have 300 miles of range and then you put a trailer on it, now you have 150 miles of range. Well, 150 miles all of a sudden isn't that much, especially at highway speed. And then, I'm hoping we see trailers that are designed to be more aerodynamic, because that's the big challenge, is the aerodynamics of the trailer. It turns out it doesn't seem to matter how long the trailer is. It matters like the frontal surface area of the trailer, how big of a rectangle is it pushing through the air, and how smooth is the shape of the trailer. Turns out Airstreams, even though they're fairly large, they're just really, really aerodynamic in their design, and that helps a bit. And I'm thinking about driving around the country with a travel trailer on a Cybertruck starting maybe March or April of 2023. So hopefully I will have a Cybertruck by March or April of 2023, and there will be and it will have decent range, and there will be a pretty good travel trailer that's efficient that I can get. Mitch says, running out of charge is FUD. I've been driving a 2012 Model S for 10 years. I've never run out. Yeah, I mean, it's true, but range anxiety is real, and if you were here in South Florida, Mitch, and you were driving to Sebring, you would have range anxiety. It is a bit of a challenge. Once they have a supercharger in Sebring, that's going to be a lot less of a problem. And there aren't a lot of places like Sebring where there are people. Where the more population you have, the more superchargers you tend to have near you. And we're seeing a lot of superchargers being added where the population is and where people travel between populated areas. It's going to be slower in rural areas. Like somebody was showing me some spot in North Carolina that he vacations in, and there's just no supercharger near that spot. So, okay. Mark says, I'd like a huge battery to avoid the top and bottom 30% for longer battery life. So, Mark, my impression is that Tesla's battery management has gotten so good that you don't need to avoid the top and bottom 30%. If you charge to 85% and if you're supercharging and you drop down to 5%, you're not really, as long as you're supercharging right away, it apparently doesn't really have that much impact on the battery. So I don't think, the thing you don't want to do, as I understand it, is charge your battery to 100% and let it sit. That's probably the biggest problem that people are facing, is if you charge your battery to 100% and let it sit, it tends to degrade the battery. If you have lithium iron phosphate batteries, that's not a problem. But if you have nickel-based batteries, that's apparently a problem. So I actually felt bad yesterday. I realized I had charged my vehicle to 94% and then I didn't use it. I kind of want to keep it to like 80, 85%. So Mitch says lithium iron phosphate is safer and much better. Lithium iron phosphate, LiFePO4, is safer and much better. I think that's another thing, is that as they get more efficient, I think we're going to start seeing vehicles with more lithium iron phosphate achieve 300 miles of range. And yeah, I think the big one is towing. I think, are they going to make progress on providing enough range for towing? I have a hunch that the Cybertruck quad motor is going to have more than 400 miles of range. It's going to be expensive. It's going to be like 100 grand. We'll see what happens. Mark says, if there's a new place you need a charger, you can request one. So the place where I need a charger is Sebring, Florida, where my mother lives. My mother's in an assisted living facility. I believe they already have the permits, and it's just a question of time until they add the supercharger. But as far as I know, they haven't added it yet. So I'm just waiting. It's just this quirky spot. It's this hole in the supercharger network in the middle of Florida, south of Orlando. So, all right. So I don't have a lot of questions. This may be a short live stream. So I'm going to put this video. I'm trying to think if there's anything else. There's nothing particularly new that happened with Boring Company. There's nothing particularly new that happened with Neuralink this week. Mitch says there's also destination charging. Yeah, there's a destination charger at a hotel in Sebring. But that's, they don't just, you have to be staying there for them to let you use it. And then there's actually chargers near the Sebring International Raceway, and you can use those. It's just not ideal. Superchargers are better. So, and there's other chargers along the way, but they don't, like Florida Power and Light has some charging stations on the way home in Okeechobee, but they don't have the right, I don't have the right adapter for their chargers. I have the right adapter for some chargers, but not for that charger. It's just a mess. I've gotten to the point where, like, I plug in a 12-volt wall outlet while I'm visiting my mom, and then I go over lunch somewhere and I plug in a 12-volt wall out, and I probably add like 2% to my battery, but that might be enough to make a difference. Yeah, I forget which adapter I have in my car. Mitch mentioned Shadamo. There's Shadamo, there's CCS, there's a bunch of different, that's one of the funny things, is there's so many different versions of chargers and different adapters. Mark says, I pointed out a dead space in Iowa where there was a dead point, I guess you mean. And they installed a bunch of, G is below T. They installed a bunch in Mount Pleasant, Iowa. Okay, I mean, I think over time they're going to get there. We're going to see a lot more superchargers. It's going to be great. I don't think the supercharger network is going to be a huge problem in the future. I think we're going to see a lot more superchargers added in a lot of places. It's going to make a big difference. So, nothing with Neuralink, nothing with Boring Company, no news with the podcast. Please, if you haven't watched it, please check out my video yesterday. And then I should say the other big news coming is Lucid Motors has their earnings call tomorrow. So I believe they'll release their earnings slide deck maybe 5 p.m. East Coast time, Florida time, 2 p.m. California time, and their earnings calls at 5:30 p.m. East Coast time, 2:30 p.m. California time. I am right now planning to live stream on YouTube. I don't normally live stream on YouTube, but I'm planning to live stream on YouTube. I don't know. Maybe I'll do it on here. Maybe I'll do it on Locals instead. I probably will do it on YouTube. I'll live stream where I will start before the earnings call starts, and I'll go through the slide deck. And then as they do the earnings call, I'll probably talk over some of it, let them do most of the talking. And we'll see what we learned from the Lucid Motors earnings call. Did they deliver 100 cars in 2021? How many vehicles have they delivered so far? What's their warranty expense? Because we know they just had a big recall of 200 vehicles. A lot of different questions about Lucid Motors that we're going to have to address. We're going to see what they say in the earnings call. Do they make forecast of how many vehicles they're going to deliver in 2022, because they've said they're going to deliver 20,000 in 2022. That seems unlikely. Do they have news of any lower cost vehicles they're going to produce? It seems premature for that. Do they have an update on construction of the next phase of their factory? Because Bear's Workshop has been videoing. Apparently, they have started building the next phase of their factory. They got a lot of work to do. What else is going on? They borrowed money. Are they going to report on what happened with the loan that they borrowed? How much cash pile do they have? Do they have plans to raise capital going forward? Are they at risk in a recession? Are they going to address, because the elephant in the room for Lucid Motors, there's a big difference between Rivian and Lucid Motors. Rivian has a big cash pile. And I just did an interview with Freelancer Finance. They did a video about me. I did a video about Ben Sullins did a video trashing Tesla. I did a video about why Ben was wrong. They did a video analyzing my argument with Ben. And then we just did a video where we talked about their video, about my video, about Ben's video. So we went deep meta. And we also talked about Lucid Motors and Arcimoto and Rivian a little bit and other things. And I think Lucid's potentially biggest problem, the biggest potential crisis for Lucid is if there's a recession, if capital markets dry up and they can't raise money, then they could go under. Where Rivian has a huge cash pile from their IPO. Lucid has roughly $4 billion in cash. Rivian has roughly $16 billion in cash. So Rivian has a big advantage on cash pile. Tesla has a big cash pile. And Tesla, of course, is selling cars and bringing in revenue, so they're cash flow positive. Rivian and Lucid are going to be cash flow negative for a while, so they really need to be able to raise capital if they have a problem. And so far, my opinion, they haven't raised enough capital. They need more capital so they're ready to ride out a recession, and I don't know that they're ready for it, so maybe they'll talk about that at their earnings call as well. It's going to be really interesting to see what we learned. Do they have any hints on what's coming with Project Gravity, their big SUV? I imagine what I'm expecting them to do at the earnings call is a lot of fluff and a lot of bragging about not accomplishing very much. Look, we delivered, X number of vehicles to our chairman of the board and our VP of engineering, and, how many vehicles they delivered to real customers. What's the deal with the software issues? What's the deal with all the recalls? We'll see. You can guess I'm going to be skeptical of a lot of what they say, but I got to read the earnings documents first and see where they're at. See if they say how many vehicles they delivered. My hunch is they're not going to say how many vehicles they delivered, but we'll be able to see with revenue and divide by 167,000 and figure out how many vehicles they delivered. So we'll see. So thank you to all my supporters on Locals. Thank you to my supporters on Patreon. Thank you to my YouTube channel members. Please check out the t-shirts and the stainless steel water bottles at elonbits.com. We all need to be less wrong. Tesla and Air, Tesla's the next Tesla. Please check out my other videos, and thank you so much for watching.